Hey everyone, how we all doing? It's Katie here, the mountain mystic, coming to you once again from my backyard forest to talk to you about this deeply important concept and practice during these times that has everything to do with embodying more light. Now, what this has to do with is this concept, this practice that bridges the spiritual, right? When we speak to calling in the light, being the light, we're talking to a deeply spiritual concept. And we're doing this, right? We're doing this spiritual practice in a way that is grounded, right? As an earth priestess, it is my job, it is my focus, my deepest intention that everything we do here gets grounded into the physical. And there's an important reason for that. It's because my heart, right, my whole being is here in connection to our very physical world, life here on planet Earth, in the form of the trees, the canyons, the forests, the rocks, also the animals, the human beings, and this includes you, right? All of life here on planet Earth. This is the space that we are devoted to. So if that's news to you, welcome to the space. Welcome to the space where we get to do the important work. And yes, this includes the spiritual work along with the psychological and the physical work that has to do with making this world here on planet Earth a brighter, more beautiful space. Now, again, if this is news to you, you know, this might be different than whatever spirituality or religion or worldview you come from. You know, I talk a lot about how, you know, I come from what I often speak to as the Church of Science and Engineering. And in that space too, just as inside many spiritualities, many religions, we work in this space where, you know, in some regard, maybe we're connected to life and its, you know, fullest, brightest, most beautiful expression. But given the world we live in, right? Given the world we live in, a world that has spent centuries, if not thousands of years, deeply embedded in patriarchal narratives and structures that speak to hierarchy and separation and ascension journeys, right? What us modern human beings have found ourselves in is a space that is just filled with one example after the next of, you know, what I speak to of as these ascension journeys, right? These progress narratives, these sort of paths forward, where forward is somewhere higher and mightier than what is here within these bodies that we are, as these bodies that we are, as these living beings that we are, as this planet Earth that we live on, right? So much of our narratives have to do with transcending this space, or getting beyond this space, or overcoming this space. And that is not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is a practice that has everything to do with deepening into this space, a practice of deepening into ourselves, into the physical nature of who we are, into the physical nature of this earth in all her different forms. And what better way to do that than to spend time outside, seated on the earth, breathing directly with the trees. But we can't always be out here in this space, right? we can't always be out here in this space because we've built a world. We've built a world that is strongly separated from nature, right? We build up walls and cities that separate ourselves from nature. We build up lives that give us very little time to get out in nature. And here we hold a vision. Here we hold a vision of a world that brings us more closely into connection with the world, with the natural world, right? We hold a vision of nature being far more accessible to everyone. But we're not quite there yet. We're not quite there yet. And in the meantime, right? And this is a big part of what we do here, right? We hold a vision for the future. We hold a vision of that which could be better. And at the same time, we hold a practice of presence. And in that practice of presence, there is a big body of work that has to do with knowing nature here and now, loving it, being devoted to it, living it in the expression that she is here and now. So with this embodiment work that we're doing, right? Embodiment work being a very general term for the guided meditations, the movement practices, right? Any sort of practice we're doing that brings us more deeply into self, more deeply into our bodies, our breath, our energetic field, unites mind and body, psyche with whole self, right? Embodiment work is about becoming whole, about knowing ourselves as whole, which is, we can think of sort of counter to, again, this very masculine way that we've been taught to live in this world, with narratives like mind over matter, right? That our minds are superior to our bodies, things like that. We're healing from these narratives, right? So with this embodiment work, what we get to do is to do everything I've been talking about right now in this moment, no matter where you are. So if you're watching this video inside your cubicle at your corporate job, which is, where I spent 40 hours of my life each week several years ago, whether you're driving your car, at home, washing the dishes, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, you can be in a practice of reconnecting with nature, into deepening into connection with self as nature. And we can do this right here, right now. And I promise you, I opened this video with, this is a conversation about how we can embody more light, call in more light, and embody it, right? This sort of high-level spiritual practice. And we're gonna talk to that, but I want to do this simple practice with you first, right? And if you know me, if you've been hanging around in these spaces, this is our bread and butter. Like, we do this all the time. No matter how fancy our practices get here, I always start here. What you can do, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, is find your breath in your body. Breathe deeply down into your lungs, feeling into the 3-dimensional expansion of your rib cage. It's taking some deep breaths into self. And as you breathe into self, it's bringing your focus, your attention, your awareness into self, into the physical sensation that tells you that you are your body breathing. Maybe you stay here in your chest, in your lungs. Maybe you allow your attention to drop a little bit deeper down into your belly, your abdomen. Maybe not, but tuning into self, your physical body, down in your body, breathing from this space and feeling into the sensation that is present here. Breathing into self. Letting this simple, this powerful part of self, right, your breath, be your guide into this reconnection, into this deepening into connection with self, with your body. Letting your breath be this powerful path that connects you into self and connects you into that which expands beyond self. You know, I'm over here in a forest. There's literally branches right in front of my face. And as I breathe, it's easy to be reminded that me breathing is not an isolated function, right? I'm not here in an isolated system breathing. I am breathing, and as I breathe, I have to be in connection with the plant kingdom, right? The trees, the ponderosas in this case, that are taking in my breath, right? Taking in my carbon dioxide, converting it to oxygen, which I then breathe in, convert to carbon dioxide, breathe out, and we are in this exchange, right? So as I breathe inwardly with self, I am in a path of deepening into connection with my physical nature, and simultaneously it has to be this way. I am deepening into the expansion that lives beyond myself. I am not isolated. I can never be isolated, or I would not be alive, right? This fundamental part of our human experience, the breath. It's simple, it's powerful, it's always with us. And from this space, right? From this space, grounding into connection with self, grounding into connection with that which expands beyond self, we get to play. We get to play, and this is what we get to do in all the guided meditations I share with you. This is what we get to do in all the circles. I hold us play in this place. Play in all the different ways we can deepen in, we can expand from the space. And as I've promised you, right, today what I want to focus on is this theme, this topic, this practice that has to do with the ability to call in and embody more light again, right? This, we can kind of think of it as, yes, it's very fundamental to a lot of spirituality. In a lot of ways, it's very simple. And in a lot of ways, that's also a very high level sort of spiritual practice, right? This ability to call in light, to call in more and more light, and to embody it, to be it, to live it. And this is, sort of counter to, I think, a lot of the ways that a lot of spiritualities or religions talk about, the light. And, when we talk about light, we can put different words to it. We can call it love. We can call it the universe. We can call it God. Whatever word there is useful and aligns for you. Any words that don't align for you, just toss them out. If light is the only thing that really works for you right now, work with it. And what I love about light is how it translates so directly to something that is so physical in our world, right? Here I am sitting underneath the sun, right? If I lean back a little bit out of the shade of this tree, it is blazing down on me. And if it helps, go out and do this practice, right? Step outside underneath the sun and call it in. Become present to it. Open up to it. And just like the sun, right? We can call in and open whatever sort of light, whatever, again, our minds love to get involved here. But as much as you can, just kind of get your mind out of the way, trying to label what this is, trying to make sense of what this is, trying to make meaning here. But just simply, tuning in, going back to your breath, and from this space, opening to the light from up above. Maybe you feel your crown, the top of your head opening up. Maybe you don't. There's an opening here to the light, right? This very sort of bread and butter spiritual practice, opening to the light, calling in the light, and letting it flood in. And it helps here to call upon that, right, earthy practice, breathing into your chest, your abdomen, bringing your presence into physical connection with self, with your body, your physical body, as you open to the light, as you call in the light from up above, and letting it flow down into you. Right now, because I've been breathing into my chest, it's like this light just wants to descend right down into my chest, into my heart. And it's like this light that's just flooding in, like this waterfall of light that floods in and fills my heart. And again, our heads can get involved here. Like, what does that mean? What is she talking about? But again, just inviting you to get your head out of the way and just feel it, right? Experience it for yourself. Embodiment work is so much about experiencing it for yourself, about getting out of this sort of learning process where we have to read about it, hear about it, understand it first before we can put it into practice, right? You've got nothing to lose here. There is no risk involved. There's no reason you have to understand it before you can practice it. Simply try it out. Try it out. Open up to the light. Call it in from up above. Allow it to descend, this waterfall of light, to fill you. Be present to it. Feel it. Experience it within self. What happens? What feelings, what sensations arise in your body? What images come to mind? What intuitive knowings, what hits do you get, This is our playground here. And it is a playground. It's a place where we get to play, to learn in this embodied experiential way. So what I do want to do, after I've given you that whole spiel on embodiment work being a space where first and foremost, we are experiencing it. The only thing that is required for you to do embodiment work is for you to be open to experiencing it. If you let your head get in the way and tell you narratives about how silly it is, that is the thing that's going to stop you. And I hear you with that one. I've been there, right? I was raised inside the Church of Science and Engineering, right? We bowed down to technology. We bowed down to only that which could be reduced and quantified and validated with statistical techniques, right? Before we could believe it. And I've done a lot of work to get over into this space so that I can tell you how important and powerful it is to let that go and to be in a space of being willing to experience life for what it is right here, right now. All it requires is a willingness on your part to be open to it. So try it out. Breathe into your lungs. Center yourself down in your body. Open to the light from up above. If it helps, go outside. Let that sun radiate down through you. Or else, just wherever you are, open up to the light from above. Let it waterfall down through you. Let it fill you. So as I do this practice here, again, I've got the sun blazing down on me, and I can feel its warmth hit my forehead. And as it hits my forehead, it kind of pierces through me and it radiates down through me, and I can feel that warmth move down through my chin. I can feel that warmth move down into my chest, down into my belly, across my skin. Try it out with the sun. Try it out inside in a room with no sun, where you can simply open to the light from up above. And now let's have this conversation about why this is important, right? Why is it important to do this work? And boy, is that a big topic, right? Boy, is it a big topic to speak to. Why would one want to open to the light? But to try to put some words to it, why would one want to open to the peace, the joy, the hope, the love, the force of life, the connection that is right here, that is always right here? So instead of me trying to put more words to it, maybe you feel into it yourself. Feeling into it for yourself, and maybe you feel into some words that tuning into the light, like what does that do for you? Maybe you leave those words as comments so that, we can kind of weave together what it means to call in the light, how it feels, the experience that we have. For me, often there's this experience of piercing joy. There's also this piece about light being consciousness itself. So light being consciousness itself, right? Why would you want to be open to consciousness itself? Because the light of consciousness is that which is going to bring awareness to that which has laid in shadow, that which is, unconscious. How much of self is unconscious? I remember back in my days as a neuroscientist and a student studying psychology, and recognizing that us as human beings, we're only, most of us are like this much conscious in relationship to the whole of who we are, right? It's like we live our lives in this constant, or this tiny sliver of all that we are. Meanwhile, we have, I'm trying my best not to quantify this here. Again, as a recovering engineer, I have this ability, this need to quantify everything. So I want to say 99% of us is unconscious, and that's just unskillful, right? Because we can't really quantify this. But let's say it, 99% of self is unconscious, right? And I could tell you why this is, all the deep wiring through our nervous systems and our cellular functions, right? All of that biochemistry that's going on, it's unconscious. It's beneath the level of your consciousness. What we can do and what we get to do here, and what many, including myself, would say is a big part of the spiritual path, is becoming more conscious, bringing more light into self. And this is important because once something becomes conscious, then you have the ability to actually work with it. It is no longer just working on its own beneath the surface, having control over you, but now you are in relationship to it. So now you have the choice, the ability to be a conscious co-creator with it. So say we have a practice, right, where we're opening to the light, we're calling it in, and we're letting it descend down into our bellies, right? opening up to the light, letting it descend down into your belly. Calling down the light, letting it flow down into your abdomen. And from this space, letting this light do what it will. Down in your abdomen, letting it guide you down into your abdomen. And from this space, what magic unfolds, what alchemy unfolds down in your abdomen, this deeply unconscious space. You know, your abdomen's housing all these organs, all this dense energy. And how many humans spend any of their time consciously down in this space? How much wounding, how much illness do we have down here? How much hurt, how much ache do we have down here? How many blockages do we have in the flow of energy here? You know, I come from the world of metabolic health, right? Kind of started in neuroscience, then moved over into the world of metabolic health, and was really interested in how our behavior is connected into the effects of our metabolic health. So I was really interested in things like gut health and liver health. And, you know, we can call upon science and research and knowledge to make educated decisions about our behavior. And this is important. But what I realized was so few humans actually have any sort of conscious connection, any sort of skillful connection to what is going on in their bellies. Instead, what we have is a whole lot of shame and a whole lot of toxins and just other crap that has built up there. So what we can do, you know, if you say you want to heal self, yeah, there might be important work to do in the realm of nutrition or other sort of behavioral focused practice, and, you know, nutritional education, exercise education, stuff like that's important. And can you be in an embodiment practice where you are letting that energy and that consciousness bring your attention into your belly? And from here, it is very much so about the physical. It is also so much about that which expands beyond the physical. You know, we can kind of swing the pendulum, right? We've been talking about something very physical, but now shall we move that pendulum over into the deeply spiritual, right? So as we descend down into our bellies and descend deeper down into self, you know, this is the space that we do that deep soul work from, that important soul work from. If we want to work with soul, if we want to engage with soul, I find it useful to do a practice of, you know, maybe you go through your heart and descend deeper, deeper down into self from this space. So whether you're looking for soul work, whether you're looking for high-level spiritual work, whether you're looking to heal self physically, to transform self physically, right? Everything is here. This is life's playground. And that means everything in your life, everything in your body is at play here. This is a big topic, you guys. This is a big topic. And what this video is not here to do is try to, you know, speak to everything, but to spark things in you. So if something has been sparked in you in this video, please leave a comment. Let me know if you want me to go deeper into a topic. Leave a comment. Let me know. This is an ongoing conversation. If you want to deepen in, join me in Circle. Circle is the space where you get to be present with me on Zoom so that I can facilitate these practices while you are weaving in the energy, also the words that, you know, co-create the space so that I can serve you more directly. That's what Circle is for. I need to get up and get moving. My legs are telling me this. So I'm going to start to close down for today. I thank you so much for joining me in this space. Again, join me here. Make sure you're subscribed. Like this video, leave a comment to help nurture the community here. Make sure you're subscribed to the Mountainistic newsletter. You can do that at upwardslopes.com. When you do that, you'll get more free guided meditations. Join me in Circle so that we can connect directly. That's all different free ways you can join into the community. If you want to deepen in even further and support this space financially, join the new membership. There's different options depending on how much you're willing and able to offer each month. In return, you'll get a whole kind of library full of guided meditations and embodiment practices. I am regularly updating that. That's a way you can help further support my ability to show up and do this for you. It's also a way you can help my ability to be in service to the forest, to buy seeds and saplings to help regrow the Ponderosa forest. Today I'm coming to you from the part of the forest that is still standing. But if you've heard me talking about this land here, that's not the case for most of it. Most of the land where I live has been burned and has been going through a desertification process. And with We Are the Forest, big part of what I'm doing is calling upon my background as a bioengineer, expanding that into the realm of ecology, ecopsychology, to bring humans together, to be in connection to the forest, to help nurture it, to help it take its newer, brighter, more beautiful form after the fires that burned it down 25 years ago and have left it in a desert state. So that's what's happening here too. Join the membership. Your money goes to supporting that regeneration effort. Come to Circle. Be a part of a community that is out there working on your own projects. This is new territory. Everything we're doing at We Are the Forest, part of the foundation of what I'm building here is doing things differently, not acting from, what we could speak to as the sort of patriarchal, overly masculine way that we work in the ecological world, that we sort of work to solve the problems with our land, that we try to do these regenerative efforts. We're moving over into what we may speak to as a more feminine way of doing things, a way that has to do with being in connection with the land, of knowing the land as sovereign, as very much so alive in its own form. So we are not here as humans to come in and fix this problem, to address this issue in the way that our short-sighted, egoic minds think is best, but instead to be in relation to the forest, to help support it, to help nurture it, to help bring it back into life in a form that best serves the land. All right. Thanks again for hanging out with me today. Yeah, big love to you. Big love to you, and I look forward to catching you in whatever the next space is that we find ourselves in.